how's it going, YouTube? Today they announced the patch, or they actually released the patch for the performance update. So you can see up here in this top right corner something brand new where there's like the CPU, GPU, memory, VRAM, drive, latency shader. So what this all means is that now we can see why exactly our game is lagging, although some people see that their CPU bar is fully red, which means that your CPU, in my case, is the bottleneck. GPU, probably you won't see it all the way in because rarely is a GPU the bottleneck in this game, and it's usually CPU problems. But you can see that the server thing, however, is you can never see a bar. So that feels like that GGG is just telling us that it's our fault. The server our performance is bad, whether it's our CPU, our GPU, or our memory, or our video RAM. And I guess this is our SSD, and this is the shader cache. So it's a quite interesting little change. It looks pretty nice having these colors, and I think that people will be able to figure out what exactly is affecting their setup. I did talk to a few people, and in my experience, the performance is either hit or miss. Some people reported that their game was lagging terribly now, and they couldn't even play the game, and they couldn't even get to the menu, while other people said that they were able to do delirium and stream for the first time ever. So like all things in PoE, especially your performance, it really comes down to the specifications you have and whether you have an AMD or Intel CPU and what type of graphics card you have. So your mileage may vary is pretty much what I can conclude from the performance patch. At the very start of the performance patch, however, I was lagging really badly, so that is something to keep in mind. So if you're lagging in the beginning, just give it some time and it should be a little better. But on to this build. This build has been beyond my wildest imagination of how well it could perform at this budget, and I do not think that there is probably a better build around like 20 to 25x budget for doing all the content. I was able to do the Feared. I was even able to do 100% delirium a little bit, although it was a little scuffed. I did roll monster life on 100% delirium, but the damage is probably not there for 100% delirium. I'll showcase a little in the videos just so people can have an idea of what the damage is like in 100% delirium map. Because 100% delirium map is pretty much the end game content of this game. It's the hardest content by far, and there's really nothing that comes close. But I think like 10 mil DPS is just not enough to do it. However, for the Feared and everything and doing the invitations, oh, I forgot to do a breach invitation, but basically this build can do it all, and it's quite tanky and a joy to play. And mapping wise, with March of the Legion boots, I got another first among equals cluster, and it feels a lot better. I feel like this tree could still be changed around a lot to optimize it, but at this point, I'm pretty satisfied with going into the league start playing this build as long as nothing has changed. It's a very tanky build, even though it says 2.8k life. You can get like 3 to 4k and you would probably be near immortal. And the damage is actually relatively good. I'll showcase like some Uber Elder fights, the Feared fights, and it's able to kill most of the content pretty fast. I don't really know exactly how much DPS it is, but it is more than enough at this budget to get you through the whole game, get you through your whole Atlas setup, and get you to farming for your end game build. So this will be my starter, barring any changes. And in the coming videos, I will probably test out like a Necromancer or something for an Aura Stacker, because I know a lot of people are curious about it. And I believe that Ascendant is pretty solved in terms of what you can use to level. You can either level with Exsanguinate, or you can level with Spellslinger Lightning skills. You can play Exsanguinate, or you can play Storm Brand or Bladefall Blade Blast Archmage. And this is just for league starting. Obviously, there's a lot of other good Scion builds, but Scion is just not a great class for league starts, so your options are pretty limited. So let me get into the gear. I'll go over like what I got upgraded it and what potential upgrades I could see for this character in the end. For the gear overview, most of my gear is pretty unchanged. I didn't really make any changes because you just didn't really need to make any changes for this build. But I'm just going to go over each piece of gear real fast and say what type of upgrades you could get. So the one is still a cast speed, crit multi, mana, and those are the main things. Cast speed is actually pretty important for this build because it makes casting an aura a lot faster and it makes the gameplay a lot smoother. So I highly recommend cast speed. So those are the 3 mods I would probably guarantee to have. And then anything else is a bonus, whether it's crit chance for spells or spell damage or lightning damage to spells, and you would just craft on spell damage or whatever is left. So this one here is the same exact thing. I don't think the accumulator one is really worth it. It does not seem that great. Could be okay. I'm not really sure. Maybe if you had 2 accumulator wands and then you can have max power and frenzy charges. It didn't seem too good for me in terms of power charge uptime. You can see it's already falling off right here. So same thing, just try to get a better wand with more damage. So this wand you could have more crit chance for spells. You can also have T1 mana, or you can have a hybrid spell damage and mana roll, or you can have a higher flat damage to spells. So this Helm, Crown of the Inward Eye, I think is mandatory. You can't really replace this early game in the league. You could get a rare Helm with Transfiguration of Soul or something, but that requires a Maven Orb to make it. But basically, for this Helm, only thing you need to keep in mind is to get a max roll on the Crown of the Inward Eye and to get a Storm Brand enchant with 12% Lightning Pen. And that's pretty much all you can really upgrade on the build. This thing is the same thing. You just want max rolls on a unique. Allocate Mind Drinker is probably the best you can go for. Cloak of Defiance is the same thing. Make sure to have a high mana roll and to get the quality to 28%, and then to grant 1 mana per 2% quality. And then you have the rings. These rings, ideally, you want mana regen as instead of one of these resist, so that would be the perfect ring. So you would have T1 life, T1 mana, dual res, mana regen. And then that would probably be the best that I could think of. I guess you could also try to craft it with a crit multi or something like that, and that would be even better. But crit multi is probably the #1 way to scale our damage, as it's a crit multi build. Oh yeah, crit chance for spells is actually incredibly important, because I think the crit chance for our build is only 60%. So Bottle Faith goes a long way for the build too, if you can pick one up. I was testing one out, and it does make a huge difference. And then you have March of the Legion boots. You could get +2 the gems on a corruption. You ideally want 70% mana regen if you've casted a spell recently, as mana regen is incredibly important for us. This belt, you would probably use a Stygian belt. You would use something to do with like flask effect and damage, I think. So there's a lot of different, options for the belt. This is a very, generic belt. Oh yeah, all of these rings and amulets, you should use Fertile Catalyst to get it to 20%, because it makes a huge difference having 20% more mana and life on your amulet, ring, and belt. There's something to keep in mind. And Asenavs are pretty cookie cutter. Oh yeah, when you're doing the Feared, make sure to get a rare piece of gloves. So I just crafted this like really bad gloves that I use for the Feared fight, because the Feared and Atziri do reflect the curse. So when you cast temp chains, you will temp chain yourself the whole fight. So make sure to have a glove swap for bossing. Other than that, the flask, you should always run Quicksilver, Enduring Mana Flask of Heat or Warding. Warding is probably better, as you want to have that up all the time. Then you need a Diamond Flask, which is mandatory. Then you need Cinder Swallow, and then lastly you need Bottle Faith. So the Slaunching Flask you would replace with a CB Jewel. So most of the stuff I'm telling you is like pretty end game upgrades. So I do have a little pop of someone's character, I think. So let's see here. Storm Brand. So there is someone who actually kind of played this build. Now this is not to say that their build is perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but this person's name is Mana Overdose. So he's using a Headhunter, and he has to use Essence Swarm because he's not using March of the Legion boots. But you can see like here, this person's, wands are just T1 crit chance for spells, and it also has flat lightning damage to spells, and same thing for this thing. And it also even has the aura effect on it, which is pretty big. And their setup is what I would run: Adrenaline and Warding, and then Heat. Actually, I'm not really too sure about that. Wait, what's the one flask they're running that I'm not? Oh, they're not running the Quartz flask. So you can see for the jewels, you should use Healthy Mind. And getting the pen on the corruptions is pretty big. Unnatural Instinct is another jewel to have. And this, Watcher's Eye is pretty important if you can get damage pen, lightning resistance, and crit chance. Crit chance is incredibly important for this build, as I cannot stress it enough that our crit chance is lacking. And this is actually one way to scale our damage that I didn't really think about, is getting these triple multi-jewels. because you can get multi while dual wielding, multi with lightning skills, multi with elemental skills. And now that I think about it, tomorrow I'm going to go back and I'm going to do the 100% delirium and I'm going to deck myself out with these jewels. So you can see on my build, currently, I have a lot of jewel sockets I can take. I have one jewel socket here, one jewel socket here, one jewel socket here. That's like, and then one jewel socket, which is literally nothing. One more jewel socket here, and I can even get a jewel socket here or like here. And these jewel sockets will be pretty big. So each jewel socket, if you consider getting a triple multi-jewel, is literally like 45% multi, I think. And they won't even be that expensive because dual wielding multi-jewels are incredibly cheap. So that's something to keep in mind. You can literally skyrocket your multi up to like 500% or something like that. So that's definitely something I might try out tomorrow, just to, because I kind of want to try out the build and try 100% Delirium map again, because I do believe this build can do everything and its budget is really not that high. I know that Bottle Faith will be really expensive, but Bottle Faith is an item that you should probably just buy at League Start for the whole league, because it's an item that you'll use over and over again. But you definitely do not need Bottle Faith to play the build. But that's why it's always good to look at people's pobs of skills, because they have like some good ideas and it does help you out in trying to figure out how to maximize your build. And you do see that people have different variations of the build, and some people take a jewel socket here. And everything's honestly fine. Like Pob really does solve everything in terms of telling you what is the best route. And you don't even need to play the character, honestly, if you have a Pob and you're really good with it. But basically, name of the game is to scale crit multi, as it is a crit spell, and we want to get our crit chance as high as possible. And we can get some pen on the Helm enchant, and then we can get pen on the Watcher's Eye. So right now for the Watcher's Eye, I'm running some junk. 16% of damage taken while affected by clarity recouped as mana is actually pretty good. And this is pretty much like crit chance of Wrath, but it's a lot cheaper. I bought this Watcher's Eye for only 100 chaos. So I have a first amount replenishing medium cluster, and then I have a brand loyalty Holy Conquest. I took this off my aura stacker, so it's reduced reservation of skills, but it really doesn't matter. I'm not really sure how good Holy Conquest is for brand builds or for Storm Brand. Let me see if this guy uses it. This person actually does not use brand loyalty Holy Conquest, so I'm not really sure if that's actually good. Grand Design might be better than Holy Conquest, so I'll try it out tomorrow. So you can see this build still has a lot of potential to grow. So even though this build has cleared all of the Feared and it has done everything, even the 100% Delirium map to a certain degree, it still has a ways to go in terms of upgrades. So you can see that this build is very budget for a League starter, and it is actually very, very tanky in terms of being able to survive. So I highly recommend it, and it is a build that you can actually play to late game if you don't want to play the aura stacker right away until you feel like the aura stacker would actually be really strong. Because one of the main problems that people run into with like playing the aura stacker is that the build doesn't feel very good at 50x, because it feels worse than another build at 50x. So you could technically save up currency to 100x, 150x, and then swap to the aura stacker, and then you would have a character that feels really, really strong. Because this character at 50x is going to feel like a god compared to the aura stacker at 50x. It's just the way it is. Like, this character will literally decimate all content at 50x budget. But the only thing that I could sense that is a problem for some people is that they don't like the fact that you have to cast the auras. But it's really not that big of a deal if you get used to it. Like, most of the time you don't have that much stuff to do. You have the brands that you put down, and then that's it. Another thing I can recommend for the playstyle is to not overcast your brands too much, because you want to have mana so when your Arcane Cloak comes up, you are able to sacrifice as much mana as possible. Because if you look at Arcane Cloak, it spends 64% of your current mana, so you want to make sure when this cooldown is up, you're able to get as big of an Arcane Cloak buff as possible, so that this number is as high as possible, both for your shield and for your damage. So that's like some of the more like nuances of the build. Ideally, you want to put down Sigil of Power, and then you want to have Arcane Cloak go off, and then this will make your brand as high as possible. And I think it goes up to like 100k tooltip if it's done correctly. But overall, build is super good. It's definitely viable for all content. I will showcase the Feared and the Deathless Uber Elder. And then I think, what else did I do? Oh, Shaper Invitation I did yesterday. I did more Mavens today. Basically, I'm going to showcase some boss things, so hopefully everyone enjoys the content. I did die on the Feared because it was AoE and I didn't expect it. But other than that, I feel like you could do the Feared with like double damage mods or double life mods and it wouldn't be a problem at all.
you're afraid, but it'll be okay if you just stay with me. And we can run from here, and we can disappear, and they won't find us where we are going, dear. So baby, hold on to me, 'cause I know I can make you believe in something that only we can see. Oh, so baby, hold on to me, hold on to me. Thought you'd call, but you didn't, so I'm sitting here. Thought I heard my phone ring, but it did.
I hope everyone enjoyed the Boston clips. I threw in an Uber Atziri clip, so I just wanted to touch upon how do you actually do Uber Atziri on this build. So all you have to do for Uber Atziri is you take this Yugo and then you put the ring on your left slot. And you only do this for Atziri, and then you pretty much just forget about the lightning res, because you're never going to get hit by a storm call on the ground unless you're just trolling. So you don't need to worry about lightning res. Chaos res is completely meaningless too. So you can just do that, and then you'll be reflect immune, and then you just take it off. So it's actually better than the old school aura stacker, because you don't need to respec and waste 10 passive points every time to do the feared. But this character is definitely feared viable. It will help you complete your character or atlas and set you up for the path of success. So one can only hope that this character doesn't get nerfed. I actually do not know of another build around 15 to 20x or so budget that can probably be this well-rounded overall, have the defenses and the single target and the clear. But if there's any other builds like that, let me know in the comments below, because I'd love to make a video about it or try it out on stream. But if you like the content, be sure to like and subscribe. I stream every day on Twitch. Tomorrow I will be doing a Necromancer Spark League starter build that I'll try out. I'm not really sure how it will work, but again, it will feature March of the Legion boots, because these boots are actually really OP if you build around it. But thanks for watching, everyone, and have a nice day, and I hope you find more mirrors and exalts than I do.